right, hello. Welcome everyone. Nice to see you back here today. We're going to show the next series in the intermediate lessons for SEDA College Online. So thank you for coming to this broadcast. Um, welcome back if you've seen my previous lessons, and I'd like to say welcome to anyone new who's joining us for the first time. We're happy to be able to share SEDA Online with everyone. So for those who don't know me, my name is Austin. And during this broadcast, I'm going to be in the chat. So if you have any questions while I'm teaching, or you have any questions while this is going on, please feel free to type in the chat to say your question. Also, feel free to say hello. Say where you're broadcasting from, what's going on, and we like to see how many people we have from all over the world come to join us for a lesson. Okay, we've got a very good lesson planned for today. Lots to do with a very special verb tense in English. So, get comfortable. Get your computer, your notebook, your pencil all ready if that's what you're doing, because we're going to begin. So the lesson overview, as always, I'm going to show you what we'll talk about today. So the grammar is going to be usually, and I'm going to compare it to used to. So you might have some experience with these before. I'm sure many of you know usually. My focus today will be used to, because it seems simple at first, but the more you begin to work with it, the more that it can be a little tricky and a little complicated to use as accurately as possible. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about used to today. And then we'll do a fair bit of pronunciation with used to, because the pronunciation is almost as tricky as the grammar. This is a very, very common verb in English, and so it can kind of have a somewhat tricky pronunciation, or a very quick and fast pronunciation, and that's what I want to practice. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about some vocabulary for relationships. Okay, so I'm going to start with usually, because I think it is the most easy one to use here. So usually is actually just an adverb, and we use it to describe current habits, things that happen, every day, or things that are very common, and we always use it with the present simple tense. So to make it, we just put usually after the subject, but before the verb. So subject puts usually, present simple. You can also use the adverb normally, because it's just, these are just the groups of adverbs to talk about habits or routine right now. Usually, normally, currently, they all work the same idea, just to describe a habit. So if you think about this with a timeline, we've got the present simple tense, and it's always going to be the present simple. So you're really talking about right now. And what are we talking about? Just, things that happen repeatedly again and again and again in the present. So examples might be, I usually go to bed at 11 p.m. Present simple, go to bed, and it's my habit to do it at 11. So I usually go to bed at 11. I normally go to bed at 11. I currently go to bed at 11. They're all the same. So another example, Alex normally drives to university. So his routine, his habit is to use his car, so he normally drives. You could say currently drives or usually drives. Again, no difference. So this one's pretty straightforward. Present simple sentence, your habit, and then you just put usually before the verb, or normally, or currently. And it does not have to be here. This is the most normal position in the sentence, or the most normal location, is after the subject, before the verb. But you can move it around the sentence and it doesn't change the meaning. This is the power of an adverb. So I can say, usually, I go to bed at 11 p.m. I can move it to the end. I can say, I go to the bed at 11 p.m. usually, or I can say it in the middle. I usually go to bed at 11 p.m. And really, the meaning is the same. Uh, it might change the implication or the emphasis. So if I put the adverb at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence, it usually has more emphasis. So I might say, for this example, usually I go to bed at 11 p.m., but tonight the neighbors are very loud, so I can't sleep. So I put it at the front of the sentence for that emphasis. Usually I do this, but I can't now. Um, if you just want to say, your normal habit, no emphasis, put it in the middle of the sentence, and that will be the way. Okay. I think, though, that is as complicated as this becomes, just deciding if you want it first, in the middle, or at the end. Other than that, the grammar is something we've studied again and again and again. Okay, so now I'm going to compare it to used to. It's the same idea as usually, except now we're in the past. Only difference is we're in the past now. So used to is to talk about something that happened in the past that doesn't happen now. So if you think about it, you've got a habit, and now that habit is in the past. It cannot happen now because the habit is in the past. If the habit happened now, we would say a present simple sentence, and we would use usually because it's now. So this is kind of a logical rule of used to. You can't talk about it in the present because if the habit happened in the present, we would use usually and the present simple. So because this is in the past, it cannot happen now. It must be all in the past. So to make it, the form is very simple. Subject used to, verb in the base. If you remember modal verbs from a few lessons before, it's the same kind of grammar idea. Subject, used to, and then the verb. Right. And now if we think about this on a timeline, we have kind of this idea where there's some action happening repeatedly in the past, something you did more than one time in the past. But now we don't do it, no connection to now. So we describe this with used to. That's the idea. And so some examples. I used to swim every day as a child. Maybe, I lived, my family house has a pool, so I used to swim every day. Now I don't. I don't have a pool, I don't swim, whatever. But I don't anymore. Or I used to exercise a lot. This one is true for me. I used to exercise a lot. Now, no. Maybe this sentence is helpful for some of you. So again, that idea, I used to do it a lot. I used to exercise, and now I don't. Maybe I should start again, but until I do, I used to. All right. So what's next is the negative. So the negative for used to is a little more complicated than just simple no. So it kind of has a two-step process here. So the full formula is subject plus did, not, used to, verb. But I want to talk about this a little in detail because maybe you're not clear why do we have did? Why is it just not used to? And this is because if you remember one of the rules, I mentioned it in one of the previous videos, but it was a long time ago. To make a negative sentence in English, we must have an auxiliary verb. So, for example, I will use the present continuous. I am teaching now. I can say I am not teaching now because I have auxiliary verb to be, and then I can put no after. In English, the negative is always after an auxiliary verb. But if I think about this sentence, the positive example, so, I used to, there's no auxiliary verb. Nothing there to do. So I add not to make the negative, and then, I need an auxiliary verb as well, so I add verb to do. So auxiliary verb do is always kind of an extra. We add it to the sentence when there is not an auxiliary verb and I need a question, I need a negative. So that's why this becomes didn't used to. So the negative is not used to, but didn't used to, because I must have an auxiliary verb to make this negative. So I add do, past tense did. Yeah, I realize there's a lot of steps in the process. Yeah, maybe it's a lot to think about. But don't worry, you don't have to think of all the steps. You can always just remember didn't used to, didn't used to, positive, negative. In addition, it's also very common for people to say never used to. The meaning is exactly the same. So I didn't used to exercise. I never used to exercise. It's no different. Just another option people use. I wanted to say it just so you know that is an option. So the meaning here is a little trickier though. So the negative didn't used to is for something that wasn't true in the past, but now it is true. So in my example, I didn't used to exercise. So that means in the past I didn't. But now I do. I didn't used to exercise, but now I exercise every day. So if I return to the timeline here, if you think about this, so used to was something that happened a lot in the past and didn't anymore. When we make it negative, we're just reversing the idea. So now this is over here. I didn't do it in the past, and now it's something I do very regularly. It's a habit. So it's a way to express the change that it was something that was uncommon and now is common, or something that wasn't true that now is true, or something that wasn't a habit and now is a habit. So for example, my sister didn't used to like football, but now she watches it every week. Um, so it's very common to use this phrase with another sentence. We put them together because there's that idea that, it didn't happen in the past, but now it does. So, what is the change? What is the reason? I didn't used to eat onions, but now I cook them in every meal. So, in the past I hated onions, but now I like them and I use them a lot. So I didn't used to, but now I cook them. Also, be careful that this is now used to, not used to. We do not have a D, so this D is gone because the past tense is did. So just be careful that you remember if we have did, this is infinitive as well. So this is moved to infinitive form. Okay, so those are kind of the major ideas for the meaning of used to. We've got that positive idea of a habit in the past that you don't now, and the negative idea, the reverse. So a habit in that didn't happen in the past that happens now. So now I'm going to talk about the pronunciation things of this, because there are two very tricky pronunciation things with used to. So one is that we begin connected pronunciation with this. So we say this very commonly and very quickly, and the to here is not very important. It's a very small word. No meaning, no idea. It's only for grammar. So we begin to make it weaker and weaker and weaker. And so we use the weaker form here to, used to, used to. So we begin to connect and connect and connect. So when we speak, we use that weak form because we're speaking very quickly, and it becomes our pronunciation becomes almost not lazy, but relaxed. We use a relaxed pronunciation. So it's easier to show in an example like this. So they used to go to the library every afternoon. That's very unnatural pronunciation. Very difficult for me to say they used to go. Because this D and this T are the, very similar sounds, almost identical. So two changes happen. One, I use the t. So used to, because I'm speaking, relaxed. They used to go to the library every morning, and they connect together. Used to, or used and to connect together. But then the D and the T um, are very hard to say together in one word. Used to. It's very difficult. So I remove the D, and now I can say it as one word. Used to, used to. They used to go to the library every afternoon. They used to go to the library every afternoon. Much easier. So there's a couple steps of change here. We relax pronunciation, meaning to becomes ta. It joins another word, and then we've got a problem where we have a D and T together, so we get rid of it, used to. And we have one word here, one connected word. So I'll show some examples as well with the negative. David didn't used to study very often, or the school used to offer German classes. So let's try to say these sentences with a very relaxed and natural pronunciation. So I'll start here. Used to, used to. Exactly, it's just one connected word, used to. So let's try this first sentence here. They used to go to the library every afternoon. They used to go to the library every afternoon. Okay, and I'll do this one as well with didn't. David didn't used to study very often. David didn't used to study very often. All right, I'm just going to do those two, but begin to practice connecting your words together in this way, especially with small grammar words like to. They often, in very quick speech, become very weak and connect to the word before them. Used to. All right. But there's another thing I want to mention with pronunciation. So if you are very good at this, then the next thing is not so important because we remove the important part, the D. But if, maybe you don't like this, maybe this is still a little difficult for you and you want to say used to, that's fine. But if you do that, be very careful with the ED pronunciation. So I mention it again and again and again because it's a personal a personal love of mine. I love pronunciation. I love phonetics. So I try to show how important this ED suffix is, especially if you want to begin to improve your accent for higher levels of English. This ED is so important because it's so common, and the pronunciation is not the spelling. The ED is very different pronunciation from what the spelling says. So I'm just going to remind everyone what the three pronunciations for ED are. So when the final sound of a verb or adjective doesn't have vibration, ED is a T sound. T, t. That's it, just a T sound. And what I mean by vibration is your throat here. Is there vibration in your throat? And I'll show an example in a moment. D is used when the final sound of the verb has vibration. So there we match because D, da, vibration, so we match them together. And then we have a third option, id, when the final sound of a verb is T or D. So what does this look like? So let's look at some verbs here. Past tense verb, walked. So the final sound is a K. K, k, k. If I say a K sound, there's no vibration, no movement in my throat. You can touch your throat and feel. K, 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 k. Nothing. So we match. K, 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 t, t, t. the same. No vibration, walked. Or we can look at a verb like call. Ul. Ah, this one, we feel vibration. So what's the difference? Try this. Ul, ul, ul. You should be able to feel that when you make an L sound, there is this vibration in your throat, in your nose, in your mouth. So we match the sound. Ul, d, d, ul, d. Vibration, called. Or finally, a verb like need. Final sound is a D, so we add id. Because it would be difficult to say needed. We cannot attach a D and a D together, so we add a vowel, needed. So why am I talking about this? Why am I focusing on this? Because if this is a little tricky, if this is something that's maybe doesn't feel very good yet, and you want to say used to, make sure you have good ED pronunciation with a D sound. Used. Because this E, ignore it. You will never say used. That is, the E there is not correct. It's not said. We don't say it. We don't use it. So don't say it. Used. Just one word, one syllable, all together. Okay. But that's it for pronunciation. Don't worry. It just takes practice. Just the more that you think about pronunciation and you begin to think in your mind, okay, it's this way, it's this way. It may take years, for you to change and lots of practice. But at least if you think about it, you'll begin to take the necessary steps to change and to improve your pronunciation. So I just have some final notes about used to that I want to talk about, because with some verbs, do I use the past simple or used to? Something like verb live. I live in the same place. Is it a habit? Is it not? So here's an example. I used to live in London. I lived in London. When you're using verbs like live or work or study, there's no difference, really. Both of these sentences have the exact same meaning. I used to live in London. I lived in London. It's really your choice. I used to work as a cleaner. I worked as a cleaner. Again, no problem at all. No difference. So if the action happens more than once and you do not talk about time, you can use either, past simple or used to. It doesn't matter. For example, I could say, when I lived in London, I took a taxi every day. And there we have two examples where you could use used to. I used to live in London, and I used to take a taxi every day. I lived in London, and I took a taxi every day. Then there's no difference, because we're just talking about that past experience. There is a difference when it happens only one time, or you say a specific time. Now we must use the past simple. So for example, I could say, I lived in London last year. And that's fine, past tense with a specific time. But we wouldn't normally say, I used to live in London last year. When we add a specific time, we take away the kind of habit idea, because now I'm looking at that specific point in time last year. So we need the past simple. So just be careful with that. I lived in London last year. I walked to work yesterday. I wouldn't say I used to walk to work yesterday, because we've got that specific time. Otherwise, you can use both. And I should again say, this is not to say that the past simple and used to are the same. It is not that. It is with these verbs like live, work, study, these process experience verbs is where they are the same. Something like eat, well, then there's no difference. I used to eat, steak. Now I don't. I ate steak yesterday. Very different sentences. It's only for these verbs like live and work and study, which have a very long-term continual idea where these differences are important. All right, so let's try some practice. Correct or incorrect? So I have 9 sentences on my PowerPoint, and they are either correct or incorrect. If the sentence is incorrect, try to think, how do I fix it? So the first, do you usually talk to a close friend about problems? So is everything in this correct? Is it a present habit? Is it something that is happening now or the past? Well, if you say correct, you are correct. Nothing wrong with this sentence. I usually talk to my friend. So this is exactly how this will work. I'll show the sentence, and then I'll show the answer, and we'll continue for the next. All right. Sarah's parents used to divorce when she was a child. All right, what do you think? Correct or incorrect? So is it something that happened more than once? Is it a habit? Well, if you're saying no, it's not, you're right, because it is incorrect. Divorce is not a habit, I hope. I hope it is not a habit. So we should say simple past. Sarah's parents divorced one time when she was a child. Because if they say used to, it means it was a habit again and again and again. All right. Number 3. I didn't used to like my math teacher when I was in her class. This one's a little trickier. I didn't used to like my math teacher when I was in her class. What do you think? There might be correct, there might be some incorrect answers. This sentence is incorrect. It should be didn't like. I didn't like my math teacher when I was in her class. And so, maybe say why. Why is this incorrect? Because, in the past I didn't like her, and now I do. Well, that's the difference. So in this sentence, it is only the idea here. I didn't like my math teacher. If I say I didn't used to like my math teacher, then I need the change sentence. I need the but, now as an adult, I think she was a good teacher. So if you say didn't used to, we always need that extra bit. But why? Why was there change from then to now? Without it, we'll use the simple past because now you are not in her class now. You do not see her now, so there's nothing to change for now. So we need the simple past. All right. Number 4. They used to go on holiday every summer. What do you think? Correct or incorrect? They used to go on holiday every summer. Well, every summer is a good idea. It's a good hint there. Well, if you said correct, you are correct. Nothing wrong with that. They used to go on holiday every summer, but now everybody is an adult, so we cannot travel. All right. Number 5. My partner used to work in a company, but he lost his job. My partner used to work in a company, but he lost his job. This one's a very small thing to think about. If you caught it, very good. We're just missing the D. So always past tense. It's always used to because used to is always past tense, never present tense. So we need to add the D. That one's just kind of a grammar question. All right. Number 6. That couple has 4 children, so they don't used to go out anymore. That couple has 4 children, a very big family, so they don't used to go out anymore. Correct? Incorrect? Well, it is incorrect. And why? Well, again, present tense. Or it is not present tense. So, sorry. It is present tense, so we cannot use used to. There we go. My brain fixed its issue. It is present tense, so we cannot use used to. They just don't go out anymore. A current habit. So be very careful not to mix the two. Used to, didn't used to is only past. Any other present habit will be just the simple present simple verbs, go, walk, eat. Whereas used to will always be past. All right. 7. We usually go to the cinema once a month. Key to underline, usually go. We usually go to the cinema once a month. Correct or incorrect? Well, no problem. That one's correct. No issue, we go once a month. And then how about the last one? My sister didn't used to want a cat, but now she loves her cat. That always happens. The people who do not want pets are always the ones who love them, in my experience. Okay, but to see any mistakes, underline didn't use to want. This is the important area. Didn't use to want. No mistakes? Well, then correct, because it is correct. Nothing wrong with that sentence. We've got an idea she didn't want a cat in the past, but now, well, she has the cat and she loves it. All right, so I hope this was good to help clear any confusion about want or about used to and didn't used to and usually, because now we're going to go on finally to some relationship vocabulary. So I have some beautiful pictures here, and I want you to try to guess the word for their relationship. So let's think, how can you describe these two people? What are they? Um, they can be married, they can be just friends, or they can be engaged. So what do you think the words are? Maybe you've guessed them. If you said couple or partner or spouses, absolutely correct. Those are kind of the most common words to describe two people. Before marriage, you're a couple, you're partners, you're engaged. After marriage, you are spouses. So this is the key word for two people who are married. They are spouses. And you can use it singularly, a spouse, as well. All right, so now let's get more specific. So for these scenarios, what is she? What is she married? What is she engaged? And what is she before all of that? Those are the three words I'm thinking. Do you think anyone have a guess? Well, if you said fiance, that was one. That is for someone who is engaged, not married. They have proposed marriage, but they are not married, so they're engaged. She's a fiance. Wife after marriage, or a partner. Partner is always a word you can use for all gender and all relationships. Married, unmarried, boy, girl, both, neither. You can use partner, and that'll be okay. Next, what would we call him? So what are these three words for the man? Well, I'm sure many of you said it, fiance, it's the same, but we changed the spelling. So just be careful with the spelling. 2 E's for a girl, 1 E for a guy. And then we have husband and partner again. All right, so next picture. So these three men, they all live together. They are in a house together, an apartment together. What can we call them? What can they call each other? I'm sure you've guessed it. We've all had them. Roommates and housemates or flatmates. Roommates is the general word. It covers all situations. Housemates are people who all live in one house. Flatmates are kind of apartments or flats. So if you don't live in a house but you live in an apartment or some complex, you can use flatmates. If you live in a separate house that you share, then it's housemates, and then always roommates for any situation. Okay. And then finally, these two girls. So yes, we could say they're in a relationship. That's fine. I'm thinking we had our relationship, we had our housemates, so what else do we have? But yes, they could be dating. They could be a couple. You could use partners for them or spouses for them as well. There would be no problem using those words for this as well. But I'm thinking friends. You can also use friends for this. And I have a couple words I want to talk about with friends. And I have them in order of strength. So acquaintances, this is a very long word to mean people who you know, but they're not your friends. You don't know them very well. Maybe it's someone you see one time a week. You know their name. That's it. That's an acquaintance. A friend is the next, someone you enjoy talking to. That's fine. Um, After that, we have close friends, so stronger, a better relationship, and then best friends is kind of the highest side of that. Two people who really, really love each other. They really enjoy spending time together. They are best friends. So anything between. Um, so all of these are good words for different relationships between houses and spouses and partners and couples. So let's quickly do a bit of pronunciation for them all. So I'll go through and start up here. Couple, couple, partners, partners, spouses, spouses, or singular, spouse, spouse, roommate, roommate, housemate, housemate, flatmate, flatmate, fiance, fiance, wife, husband, acquaintances, acquaintances, friends, close friends, best friends. All right. So just some quick pronunciation. And so, like I said, if you have any trouble worried about using terms husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, you don't want to use those words. You can always describe any of the relationships you see in these pictures with partner and spouses. So spouses are married couple. There's, boy, girl, neither, both can use spouses, and partner can always be for all situations as well. And then friends as well. So those are kind of your three uh, easiest to use words. No consideration there. Okay, so now I have some verbs. I'm just going to talk about these quickly. These are some relationship expressions that are very common, like phrasal verbs and other things. So I've got 7 here. To get in touch, to lose touch, to get on, to have something in common, to be together, to go out together, and to dump someone. So number 1, to get in touch. It's the idea of touch is a common expression in English for communication. Anytime you see touch in this kind of idiom way, it usually has a communication meaning. So to get in touch is to start communication again. That's the key here is it's again. So, friends from university, university finishes, everyone goes away. Maybe years later, you get back in touch. You say, "Oh, I found you. Hello, how have you been?" That's to get in touch. To lose touch is before you get in touch. So you've stopped communication. All the friends in university, they go different areas. Now you have lost touch with everyone. And maybe you hope to get in touch with them again. So it's that idea of starting communication and stopping communication. There we go. My mouth is having some problem right now. All right. The next, number 3, to get on with, is a very common expression to mean enjoy time together. And it can be in any way, any context. I can say I get on well with my coworkers, meaning, they may be not my friends, but I enjoy talking with them. We work together well, that's fine. Or I can say I get on really well with my mother. I love talking to my mother. We always have fun. So it can be any range, any relationship. Get on means you actually enjoy the time together. And it can be the opposite. I can say I don't get on well with my mother. Gosh, she is so annoying. It's just that idea of enjoying time for any relationship type. All right. The next is to have something in common. This is to share the same interests, the same things. If I have something in common with my sister, she and I like the same music. We have the same favorite band, so I can say we have something in common. To be together means to be in a relationship. I am, we usually used in the present simple here, we are together. Or I'm with her, we are together. That's a very common, the most normal way to say that. The next, to go out together, now is to be in that process of dating. So you can go out together and not be together. Many people will say, yes, yes, that is true. Um, so it's about the different ideas. Be together, we are together is, we agreed, we are a relationship. To go out together is just, oh, we go for dinner, maybe the movies, come back. It's that beginning process. And then lastly is the end of a relationship, to dump someone. That's just to break up, to finish the relationship, to end it. To dump is a very kind of colloquial expression to say this. Very, very something really for conversation. You'll say, oh, I dumped him, she dumped me, meaning we broke up. It's a very, very spoken kind of expression. Okay, well, there we go. That is everything. So lots today, lots about used to, lots about usually, and lots to do about how to use it and when to use it. So, don't feel bad if it's still a little unclear. Um, you can always do some good. There's lots and lots of used to practice as well on the internet. So I might recommend some homework where you just spend some time, Google English used to practice, and you'll find lots of problems that can help you if you are still unclear about how this works. But to summarize everything, we had usually, which is just for current habits. You can use normally or currently. Subject, usually, present simple, straightforward. Then with used to, it's a past habit or past truth that is not true now. And then didn't used to is the reverse. It's something that wasn't true in the past but is true now. Make it with subject plus used to and verb in the base. And then I talked a bit about that ed pronunciation for this. But then in addition, there was the extra pronunciation where we do the lots of reduction. So used to, trying to say used to. And then we talked all about that relationship vocabulary. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but that is because if you download the notes, you will see you can have my pictures and my slides and my definitions, and that way you can have all my notes there, and you can try to, if you ever forget, you'll have my notes to remember. So, as I said, that is everything for today. Thank you all so much for coming for another lesson with us on SEDA College Online. We're really happy to have you all here. And so, I'll be making more broadcasts in the intermediate lesson series. So please come back, see me again in the future. And of course, if you ever think I forgot something or, oh, I can't really remember, feel free to go back and watch previous videos. And that way you can always revise what we have learned in this whole course. All right. Well, have a good day, and I hope to see you again. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.